The air shimmered with a faint hum as I adjusted the lenses of my optic array, peering through the reinforced viewport of my command shuttle. Below me sprawled the jagged surface of Krenval, a dust-choked rock of a planet my people had claimed centuries ago for its rich veins of tritium ore. Vrakes of the Tizen Collective stood as overseer of this operation, a title I'd earned through cycles of ruthless efficiency and unyielding loyalty to the Collective's war machine. My mandibles clicked softly as I surveyed the mining rigs grinding away, their rhythmic clanging a familiar song against the howling winds. My crew, a mix of Tizen enforcers and hired claws from across the galaxy, moved with practiced precision. We were a well-oiled unit, feared and respected, untouchable, or so I thought. The comms panel flickered to life, bathing my carapace in its green glow. Overseer Vrax came the gravelly of Kuzeth, my second-in-command, his tone laced with something I couldn't quite place, unease maybe. We've intercepted a signal. Unknown origin. It's organic. Organic. I tilted my head, my twin antenna twitching. The Collective had mapped every system within 100 light-years. No species dared encroach on our territory without invitation, or a death wish. Pinpoint it. If it's scavengers, we'll vaporize them before they touch a single crystal. Tzeth hesitated, a rare crack in his usual stoicism. It's not scavengers. The signal's coming from a vessel, small, primitive. No weapons signatures we recognize. But it's moving fast, too fast for anything we've catalogued. I flexed my claws, irritation prickling beneath my scales. Send a patrol. Drag them to me. I'll see what fool dares trespass on Tizen ground. The shuttle trembled as the patrol launched, their sleek fighters cutting through the ashen sky like blades. I leaned back in my seat, sipping a vial of nutrient slurry, confident this would be a brief annoyance. The galaxy was full of upstarts, soft-bodied traders, or desperate raiders who overestimated their odds against us. They always crumpled under the weight of Tizen steel. Minutes stretched into an hour. The comms stayed silent, too silent. My antenna stiffened as I tapped the panel. Kuzeth, report. Static answered me. Then a burst of noise, screams, metal tearing, a guttural roar that didn't match any Tizen vocalization. My hearts thudded unevenly. Before I could demand clarity, the viewport flared with light. A fireball erupted on the horizon, followed by another. My patrol, gone. Overseer. Kuzeth's broke through, ragged now. They're not Arg. The line cut dead. I surged to my feet, slamming a claw against the console. All units, converge on that signal. Full armament. Whatever this is, it ends now. The command deck buzzed as my enforcers scrambled to obey. I strode to the armory, strapping a plasma lance to my back and syncing my neural link to the shuttle's sensors. Data flooded my mind. Coordinates, heat signatures, a single craft weaving through our defenses like a specter. Small, yes, but its movements defied logic, darting between volleys of fire with an agility that mocked our superior tech. As I boarded a drop pod with my elite guard, I caught my first glimpse of them through the feed. Humans. I'd heard whispers of them, squishy, short-lived creatures from a backwater system called Sol. The Collective had dismissed them as irrelevant, barely worth the effort of conquest. Their ships were clunky, their weapons crude, yet here they were, carving through my forces like a blade through silk. The pod slammed into the surface, kicking up clouds of dust as we deployed. My guard fanned out, their rifles humming with charged energy. Ahead, the human craft, a boxy, ugly thing, sat grounded, its hull scorched but intact. Figures emerged, clad in patchwork armor that looked laughably primitive. I counted 5 against my 30. I almost pitied them. Lay down your arms, I bellowed through my translator, a low growl that echoed across the barren plain. You've trespassed on Tizen territory. Surrender, and your deaths will be swift. One of them stepped forward, a male by their dimorphic standards, his face obscured by a scratched visor. He raised a hand, not in submission, but to point a stubby weapon at me. "We're not here to surrender," he said, his steady despite the translator's metallic edge. "We're here for the Tresium. Step aside, Bug, or we'll take it over your corpse." Bug. The insult stung, but I swallowed my rage. "You think your toys can challenge us?" I gestured to my guard, their weapons primed. "You're outnumbered and outmatched. This ends one way." He grinned, actually grinned. "Funny thing about humans, we don't count odds like you do." Before I could respond, the ground erupted. Dust and shrapnel blasted upward as hidden charges detonated beneath my guard. 3 Tizen went down instantly, their armor shredded. The humans moved, not in panic, but with chilling coordination, firing bursts of kinetic rounds that punched through carapaces like paper. My enforcers returned fire, plasma bolts searing the air, but the humans didn't falter. They rolled, ducked, adapted, each motion precise, as if they'd rehearsed this chaos. I lunged forward, my lance spitting violet arcs. The lead human dodged, impossibly fast for his bulky frame, and countered with a shot that grazed my shoulder. Pain flared, but I pressed on, slashing at another who darted too close. My claw caught his arm, drawing blood, red, vivid, disturbingly alive. He didn't scream. He laughed, twisting free and driving a blade into my flank before I hurled him back. "Regroup," I roared, but my guard was thinning. The humans fought like cornered beasts, relentless, unpredictable. One rigged a crude explosive from scraps mid-battle, lobbing it into our ranks. Another used a fallen Tizen's rifle against us, adapting its controls in seconds. I'd never seen anything like it, not from the disciplined Calitha legions or the brutal Vaughn swarms. These creatures thrived in the mess they'd made. By the time the dust settled, my guard lay broken, their ichor staining the ground. I stood alone, panting, my lance flickering as its power waned. The humans encircled me, weapons trained, but they didn't fire. The leader approached, visor up now, revealing eyes that burned with a quiet, terrifying intensity. "You're done," he said simply. "Call off your reinforcements, or we keep going." I wanted to spit defiance, to vow the collective's wrath, but as I stared at them, bloodied, battered, yet unbroken, something shifted in me. These weren't prey. They were predators, cloaked in weakness, until the trap snapped shut. I'd underestimated them, and it had cost me everything. "Stand down," I muttered into my comms, the words bitter as bile. The humans nodded, gathering their wounded, and the Tresium crates they'd come for. As they boarded their ship, I watched, mandibles slack, my certainty crumbling. Back on the shuttle, I filed my report, omitting no detail. The collective's warlords scoffed at first, labeling it an outlier, a fluke, but the whispers spread. Mercenary bands, Vaughn, Calitha, even the rogue orcs, began refusing contracts against human special forces. Too costly, they'd say. They're hushed. Too unpredictable. Cycles later, I sat in a cantina on the edge of Tizen space, nursing a cracked carapace and a bruised pride. A young enforcer asked why I'd retired early. I didn't answer with words. I just pointed to the scar on my flank and let the silence speak. Humans weren't invincible. They bled, they died, but they fought like the galaxy itself bent to their will, and somehow it did. The cantina's dim lights flickered over my table, casting shadows that danced across the dented metal surface. I swirled the dregs of my slurry, the bitter tang lingering on my tongue, as I replayed that day on Krenval. It wasn't just the defeat that gnawed at me, it was the questions. How had they known where to strike? How had they turned our own weapons against us so effortlessly? The collective had no answers, only demands for more Tresium, more victories. But I'd seen the truth in those human eyes. They didn't win by strength or tech. They won by bending the rules we didn't even know could break. A shadow loomed over me, interrupting my brooding. I looked up to see Zrin, a grizzled Vaughn mercenary, with a missing tusk and a reputation for taking any job, no matter the odds. He thudded into the seat across from me, his bulk rattling the table. "Heard you tangled with the humans," he rumbled, his voice like grinding stone. "Still breathing, eh?" "Barely," I said, flexing my scarred claw. "You?" Zrin snorted, a plume of dust puffing from his nostrils. "Got offered a fat stack of credits to hit one of their outposts. Turned it down. Ain't worth it." I tilted my head, antenna twitching. Since when does a Vaughn say no to credits? Since I saw what they did to the Kythar on VIX-9. He leaned closer, his single eye glinting. 50 of their best, armored to the teeth, sent to crush a human squad. 10 humans, Vraks, 10. By the end the Kythar were begging for terms. Humans didn't even have ships, just grit, and whatever they scavenged, turned a plasma turret into a damn bomb. I clicked my mandibles, a chill creeping up my spine. That's what they do. They don't fight like us. They don't fight like anything. Zrin growled. You plan a battle, they plan a war. You bring a fleet, they bring a trap. I'd rather wrestle a stardrake than face that again. He wasn't wrong. The galaxy was starting to notice. Contracts against humans dried up, not because they were unbeatable, but because the cost outweighed the reward. A Tizen fleet could glass their cities, sure, but their ground teams, their special forces, they'd bleed you dry before you claimed a single trophy. Over the next cycles, I took to tracking them, not for revenge, but curiosity. I tapped into comms chatter, bribed traders, pieced together scraps of their legend. On Tyros, they'd held a choke point against a Vaughn horde for 3 days, with nothing but blades and willpower. On Calyx Prime, they'd infiltrated a Kythar stronghold, rewired its defenses, and walked out with the warlord's head. Each tale was wilder than the last, yet the pattern held. Humans didn't just survive, they thrived where others broke. One night, I found myself on a neutral station, a grimy hub called Drift 7, where species mingled and secrets flowed like cheap fuel. I'd heard a human crew was docked there, resupplying after a run-in with some pirate clan. I didn't approach them, pride wouldn't let me, but I watched from a shadowed booth as they bartered with a squid-like merchant. They laughed, loud and brash, their voices cutting through the din. One nursed a limp, another sported a fresh burn across his cheek, yet they moved with an ease that belied their scars. The merchant haggled hard, waving its tentacles in protest. "Your credits are no good here. I need ore, not promises." The burned one grinned, pulling a small crate from their pile. "How about this then?" He cracked it open, revealing a chunk of tritium. My tritium, I realized with a jolt. The same haul they'd taken from Krenval. The merchant's eyes bulged, and the deal was struck in seconds. As they walked away, the burned human glanced my way, just a flicker, but I swear he saw me. He tipped his head, a ghost of a smirk on his lips, before vanishing into the crowd. I sat there, frozen, my slurry forgotten. They hadn't just beaten me, they'd turned my loss into their currency, their story, and they knew I was watching. That's when it hit me. Humans didn't care about our rules, our hierarchies, our tech. They fought for something else, each other, maybe, or some stubborn spark I couldn't name. Whatever it was, it made them dangerous in ways the collective couldn't fathom. The warlords eventually called me back, demanding I lead a retaliation. Crush them, they hissed over the hollow feed, their mandibles snapping. Restore our honor. I refused. Not out of fear, though I'd be a fool to deny it played a part. No, I refused because I'd seen what happened when you pushed humans too far. They didn't just push back, they rewrote the game. I'd lost enough to them already. Word spread of my defiance. Some called me a coward, others a traitor. But the mercenaries understood. One by one they followed suit, turning down jobs that bore the human mark. The galaxy shifted, a quiet tremor rippling through the underworld. The Tizen collective raged. The Kyther schemed, the Vaughn grumbled, but none dared press the issue. Months later, I stood on the edge of a cliff on some nameless moon, staring at a sky streaked with stars. A human ship streaked past, a fleeting shadow against the void. I didn't know where they were going, or why. I didn't need to. They'd keep moving, keep fighting, keep winning in ways we couldn't predict. And us, we'd keep refusing the contracts. Not because we couldn't win, but because we knew, deep in our bones, that even victory would feel like defeat. The wind howled across the cliff, tugging at my cloak as I lingered there, the human ship long gone. My antenna drooped, heavy with the weight of memory. I'd once thought the galaxy was ours to command, that the Tizen collective's might was unbreakable. But humans had cracked that illusion wide open, and I couldn't unsee it. Back on Krenvol, I'd been a king in my own mind, untouchable, supreme. Now I was just another scarred veteran, nursing a story no one wanted to hear. The collective had moved on, assigning a new overseer to the mines, one young and brash enough to think he could succeed where I'd failed. I didn't warn him, he'd learn soon enough. I turned from the cliff, trudging back to my rented skiff. The galaxy wasn't the same anymore. Traders whispered of human colonies springing up on worlds we deemed worthless. Warriors swapped tales of their tenacity, half in awe, half in dread. Even the orcs, those cold machine minds, had started studying them, their algorithms stumped by human unpredictability. I climbed aboard the skiff, powering it up with a low hum. As it lifted off, I pulled up a hollow map, tracing the routes humans favored, fringe systems, harsh planets, places we'd ignored. They didn't conquer like us, didn't build empires of steel and fire. They dug in, adapted, made the impossible work, and when you came for them, they were ready, not with fleets, but with traps and grit, and a will that bent but never broke. I'd seen it firsthand. That day on Krenvol, they hadn't just beaten me, they'd rewritten the fight. My plasma lance, my guard, my pride, all useless against their chaos. I still heard their leader's voice, calm as death, "We don't count odds like you do." It wasn't bravado, it was truth. The skiff drifted into orbit, and I leaned back, letting the stars fill my view. I didn't hate them, not anymore. Hate was for equals, rivals. Humans were something else, wild, maddening, brilliant. They didn't belong in our neat little wars, our tidy contracts. They were the glitch in the system, the spark that burned the script, and the galaxy was starting to feel it. The Tizen could bluster, the Vaughn could roar, but the mercenaries knew better. We'd seen the cost, counted the scars. Humans weren't invincible, far from it. They died in droves, bled like any other, but they didn't stop. They learned, they improvised, they won. I flicked off the hollow map, setting a course for Drift 7. I'd heard rumors of another human crew passing through, and part of me, foolish maybe, wanted to see them again. Not to fight, not to prove anything, just to watch, to understand. Because if the galaxy was a game, humans weren't playing by our rules, and somehow, that made them the ones to beat.